Hi guys, welcome to another fairy tale video. Today we are talking about good bowling and card playing. That's actually the name. I'm very curious because I actually didn't think that that was a thing at these times. And I'm curious if it's maybe a newer one. I never heard of it as a Grimm's fairy tale. So yeah, very curious. Let's start with it. Once upon a time, there was an old king who had the most beautiful daughter in the world. One day he announced, "Whoever can keep watch in my old castle for 3 nights can have the princess for his bride." Now there was a young man from a poor family who thought to himself, "Why not risk my life? I've got nothing to lose and a lot to win. What's there to think about?" So he appeared before the king and offered to keep watch in the castle for 3 nights. "You may request 3 things to take with you into the castle, but they have to be lifeless objects," said the king. "Well, I'd like to take a carpenter's bench with a knife, a leaf, and a fire." All of these things were carried into the castle for him. When it turned dark, he himself went inside. At first, everything was quiet. He built a fire, placed the carpenter's bench with the knife next to it, and sat down on the leaf. Toward midnight, however, a rumbling could be heard, first softly, then more loudly. "Biff! Baff! Heh! Holla ho!" It became more dreadful, and then it was somewhat quiet. Finally, a leg came down the chimney and stood right before him. "Hey there!" The young man cried out. "How about some more? One is too little." The noise began once again. Another leg fell down the chimney, and then another and another, until there were 9. "That's enough now. I've got enough bowling." But there were no balls. Out with them! There was a tremendous uproar, and then 2 skulls fell down the chimney. He put them in the leaf and turned them until they were smooth. "Now they'll roll much better." Then he did the same with the legs and set them up like bowling pins. "Hey, now I can have some fun." Suddenly, 2 large black cats appeared and strode around the fire. "Meow, meow," they screeched. "We are freezing! We are freezing!" "You fools! What are you screaming about? Sit down by the fire and warm yourselves." After the cats had warmed themselves, they said, "Good fellow, we want to play a round of cards." "All right," he replied, "but show me your paws. You've got such long claws that I've got to give them a good clipping before we begin." Upon saying this, he grabbed them by the scruffs of their necks and lifted them into the carpenter's bench. There he fastened them to the vise and beat them to death. Afterward, he carried them outside and threw them into a pond that lay across the castle. Just as he returned to the castle and wanted to settle down and warm himself by the fire, many black cats and dogs came out of every nook and cranny, more and more, so that he couldn't hide himself. They screamed, stamped on the fire, and kicked it about so that the fire went out. So he grabbed his carving knife and yelled, "Get out of here, you riffraff!" And he began swinging the knife. Most of the cats and dogs ran away, the others were killed, and he carried them out and threw them into the pond. Then he went back inside to the fire and blew the sparks so that the fire began again and he could warm himself. After he had warmed himself, he was tired and laid down on a large bed that stood in a corner. Just as he wanted to fall asleep, the bed began to stir and raced around the entire castle. "That's fine with me, just keep it up." So the bed drove around as through 6 horses were pulling it over stairs and landings. Bing bang! It turned upside down from top to bottom, and he was beneath it, so he flung the blankets and pillows into the air and jumped off. Anyone who wants a ride can have one. Then he laid down next to the fire until dawn. In the morning the king arrived, and when he saw the young man lying asleep, he thought he was dead and said, "What a shame." But when the young man heard these words, he awoke, and as soon as he saw the king, he stood up. Then the king asked him how things had been gone during the night. "Quite well. One night's gone by smoothly, the other 2 will go by as well." Indeed, the other nights were just like the first. But he already knew what to do, and so on the 4th day, he was rewarded with the king's beautiful daughter. The end. Wow, what poor dogs and cats. Me, as someone who hates all things violence, is very not happy with this story. I would have found the other way to deal with all the cats and dogs. For sure, I love cats. We would have had a wonderful time, whatever, playing cards or whatever. And if they could talk, we could finally discuss all the things that I wanted to know about cats, so that would have been awesome. And the racing beds, maybe not the best thing for sleep, but sounds like a cheap ride at the roller coaster. I mean, but yeah, that's just my opinion. I would be really curious what you think about this story. Please let me know in the comments. And otherwise, I mean, you could think of giving it a thumbs up or join me here for a longer time and subscribe. And yeah, we will see each other next time. Bye!